The millionaire father forced his son to marry the family gardener. The wealthy son was embarrassed, but years later he was shocked. The early morning sun cast a golden hue over the rolling hills of Tuscany, bathing Villa Fiorente in a soft, warm light. The estate sprawled majestically across the landscape, its stately architecture and manicured gardens a testament to the wealth and tradition of the Bianchi family. Vineyards stretched as far as the eye could see, their verdant rows weaving intricate patterns on the earth. The air was rich with the scent of blooming flowers, promising a day of beauty and potential. Lorenzo Bianchi stood on the balcony of his spacious suite, overlooking the familiar vista. He was a man of striking features, with dark hair that caught the morning breeze and eyes the color of a stormy sea. Despite the breathtaking view, Lorenzo felt an emptiness gnawing at him. He was the heir to a fortune, the future of the Bianchi dynasty, yet he felt like a spectator in his own life, trapped in a gilded cage. As he sipped his espresso, the bitterness matched the restlessness within him. The world expected him to be a mirror of his father, Giovanni Bianchi, a man who valued tradition above all else, a man who had built an empire from the soil beneath their feet. Lorenzo respected his father but longed for something beyond the life that had been meticulously planned for him. He yearned for authenticity, a purpose that was his alone. Below, in the gardens that surrounded the villa, a figure moved with graceful purpose. Vittoria Rossi, the head gardener, tended to the roses with an expertise born of passion and experience. Her auburn curls danced in the sunlight as she worked, her hands moving deftly among the blooms. Vittoria was a woman who understood the language of the earth, who found solace and strength in its embrace. She was everything Lorenzo admired. Independent, spirited, and deeply connected to the world around her. Vittoria had grown up in the shadow of the Bianchi estate, the daughter of a humble farmer. Her life was simple but filled with dreams of her own, a vision of owning a small farm where she could cultivate the land with care and freedom. The Bianchi Gardens were her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the societal expectations that often felt suffocating. As she worked, Vittoria felt the familiar rhythm of the garden seep into her bones, the gentle rustle of leaves and the sweet perfume of flowers enveloping her like an embrace. Her hands were stained with the earth's rich hue, and she wore it like a badge of honor, a testament to her dedication and love for her work. The gardens were a canvas, and she, an artist, painting with the colors of nature. Lorenzo watched her from above, intrigued by the woman who seemed so at home in the world he found stifling. He had often observed Vittoria from a distance, drawn to her presence like a moth to a flame. There was something about her that challenged him, a quiet strength that stirred a longing for change. Despite their proximity, Lorenzo and Vittoria's lives rarely intersected beyond polite greetings and the occasional exchange. They inhabited different worlds, each defined by its own set of rules and expectations. Yet unbeknownst to them, their paths were about to converge in a way neither could have anticipated. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the tranquility of the morning was disrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Lorenzo's reverie was broken by the arrival of his father's trusted advisor, a man who embodied the tradition and authority of the Bianchi lineage. "Good morning, Lorenzo," the advisor greeted, his voice as polished as the silver tray he carried. "Your father requests your presence in the study." Lorenzo nodded, a sense of duty pulling him away from his contemplations. The weight of expectation settled on his shoulders once more as he made his way through the opulent halls of the villa. The corridors were lined with portraits of ancestors who had come before him, their eyes seeming to follow him with silent judgment. Entering the study, Lorenzo found Giovanni seated behind a grand oak desk, surrounded by ledgers and plans for the estate. The room was a testament to the family legacy, adorned with artifacts and memorabilia from decades of triumph and success. "Ah, Lorenzo," Giovanni greeted, gesturing for his son to sit. "We have much to discuss about the future of Villa Fiorente." Lorenzo listened as his father spoke of expansion plans and new ventures, the conversation a familiar symphony of ambition and tradition. Yet beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension simmered, a tension that would soon surface and change the course of their lives. Meanwhile, in the garden below, Vittoria continued her work, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the Bianchi household. She hummed a melody as she moved from flower to flower, her heart in tune with the world she cherished. The day stretched on, a tapestry of possibilities unfolding beneath the Tuscan sun. The estate, with all its grandeur and secrets, stood as a silent witness to the journeys of its inhabitants, journeys that would soon intertwine in unexpected and profound ways. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cobbled courtyard of Villa Fiorente. The Bianchi family mansion, with its ancient stone facade, seemed to exhale the secrets of generations as the servants prepared for the evening meal. Inside, the air was filled with the tantalizing aromas of Tuscan cuisine, but an undercurrent of tension pulsed through the corridors. In the grand dining room, a table stretched beneath a glittering chandelier, its crystal pendants dancing with light. Giovanni Bianchi sat at the head, his presence commanding and unyielding. Lorenzo joined him, a knot of unease twisting in his stomach. He had learned to read his father's moods, and tonight, the air crackled with an expectation that set his nerves on edge. Giovanni's gaze swept the room, taking in the opulence with a sense of ownership. The Bianchi crest, an intricate design of vines and grapes, adorned the walls, a reminder of the family's legacy and Giovanni's determination to uphold it. "Lorenzo," Giovanni began, his voice steady and authoritative, "I've been considering the future of our estate and the family name. It is time we discuss your role in it." Lorenzo nodded, trying to mask his apprehension. He had heard variations of this speech countless times, each laced with expectations he struggled to meet. "You are aware," Giovanni continued, "that maintaining our position requires not only business acumen, but also strategic alliances." Lorenzo's heart sank. He knew where this conversation was headed, toward the topic of marriage, an alliance to solidify their influence. "I understand, Father," Lorenzo replied, his voice measured. Giovanni paused, letting the silence stretch, before delivering the words that would change everything. "I have decided that you will marry Vittoria Rossi." Lorenzo's shock was palpable. "Vittoria?" he echoed, disbelief tinged with confusion. "The gardener?" "Yes," Giovanni confirmed, his gaze unwavering. "It is a choice rooted in practicality and potential. Vittoria's family has long been tied to this land. Her connection to the soil is exactly what you need." Lorenzo bristled at the notion of being manipulated, of his life being orchestrated like a business transaction. "And if I refuse?" The room seemed to hold its breath, the ticking of the ornate clock amplifying the tension. Giovanni's response was as immovable as the villa's stone walls. "You will forfeit your inheritance and your role in this family." Lorenzo felt a chill creep over him, a sense of betrayal mingling with anger. The weight of Giovanni's words was a chain, threatening to bind him to a future he hadn't chosen. Meanwhile, in the kitchen gardens, Vittoria tended to her duties, blissfully unaware of the storm that brewed in the mansion. Her hands worked methodically, plucking ripe tomatoes from the vine, the sun warming her back as she hummed a tune her mother used to sing. Later, as the evening settled over the estate, Vittoria was summoned to the dining room. She wiped her hands on her apron, curiosity piqued, but not yet tinged with apprehension. The dining room, usually a realm of wealth and decorum, felt foreign to her. She stepped inside and her eyes met Lorenzo's. In that moment, she saw the turmoil in his gaze, an echo of her own confusion. "Vittoria," Giovanni addressed her with an air of authority, "I have chosen you to marry my son Lorenzo." The words struck her like a thunderclap. Vittoria's heart raced, indignation rising like a tide within her. "Chosen?" she repeated, her voice firm despite the shock. "I am not a possession to be bartered, Signore Bianchi." Giovanni's expression was impassive, as if her resistance were a mere formality. "This union is mutually beneficial. You will gain security and position. Your family will prosper." Vittoria met his gaze unflinchingly. "And what of my dreams? My independence? I have no desire to be shackled by expectations." Lorenzo watched the exchange, admiration stirring within him. Vittoria's defiance mirrored the fire he often felt trapped within, a desire to break free from the chains of tradition. Despite their shared resentment of the situation, Lorenzo and Vittoria found themselves bound by an unspoken understanding, a recognition of each other's struggle against the forces that sought to control them. As the dinner ended, Lorenzo escorted Vittoria to the gardens, seeking solace in the open air. The night was alive with the symphony of crickets, the stars casting a gentle glow over the landscape. "I'm sorry," Lorenzo said, his voice sincere. "This isn't what I wanted." Vittoria nodded, the tension easing slightly in the moonlit garden. "Nor I, but we must find a way through this." They walked in silence, the earth beneath their feet a reminder of the connection that would soon bind them inextricably together. In that shared moment, amid the flowers and the stars, a seed of understanding was planted, a promise of change that would soon blossom into something neither had expected. The sun was setting over Villa Fiorente, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, as if the universe itself were trying to soothe the tensions simmering below. Despite the beauty, an air of discomfort settled over the estate. News of Lorenzo and Vittoria's engagement spread quickly among the staff, rippling through the halls like an unexpected storm. Lorenzo found himself in the library, a refuge of mahogany shelves and the scent of old books. He paced restlessly, grappling with the weight of his father's ultimatum. His mind raced with conflicting emotions, anger, frustration, and a flicker of curiosity about Vittoria. What kind of person was she really, beyond the determined exterior she'd shown at dinner? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door creaking open. Vittoria stepped inside, her expression a mixture of defiance and uncertainty. "I didn't expect to find you here," she said, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Lorenzo gestured to the vast room. "It's one of the few places that still feels peaceful." Vittoria nodded, her eyes scanning the rows of books. "I understand. Sometimes I find solace among the roses." They shared a moment of silence, each grappling with the reality of their engagement. Lorenzo leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. "I'm sorry for how my father approached this. You deserve better." Vittoria met his gaze, her eyes unwavering. "I may not have chosen this, but I will not be a passive participant in my own life, Lorenzo. If we are to do this, we need to set terms that respect both our lives." He studied her, recognizing the strength beneath her calm exterior. "Agreed. We must find a way to navigate this arrangement together." As they spoke, a plan began to take shape. They decided to spend more time together, hoping to discover common ground that could make their forced union bearable, perhaps even advantageous. The garden, they agreed, would be their meeting place, a neutral ground where they could explore the possibilities of their unusual partnership. Their first encounter in the garden was tentative. Lorenzo watched as Vittoria moved through the rows of plants, her fingers brushing the leaves with a gentle familiarity. Her presence was calming, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had overtaken his life. "This is where I feel most at home," Vittoria confessed, kneeling beside a row of tomatoes. "The plants, the soil, they make sense to me." Lorenzo joined her, curious despite himself. "Show me," he said. "Teach me what you know." Vittoria glanced at him, surprised by his willingness to learn. "All right," she agreed, a small smile playing on her lips. "But you'll have to get your hands dirty." They spent hours in the garden, Vittoria patiently explaining the intricacies of plant care and sustainable practices. Lorenzo found himself absorbed in her world, the complexities of agriculture a welcome distraction from the constraints of his lineage. As they worked side by side, Vittoria began to see beyond Lorenzo's privileged facade. She noticed the way he listened intently, the curiosity that sparked in his eyes when he asked questions. He wasn't the aloof heir she had imagined, but rather a man searching for purpose in a life predetermined by others. One afternoon, as they took a break under the shade of an olive tree, Vittoria turned to Lorenzo with a question that had been on her mind. "Why do you go along with your father's plans, Lorenzo? You seem to want something different." Lorenzo sighed, leaning back against the rough bark. "It's not easy to defy a man like my father. His expectations are like chains, and I've always struggled to break free." Vittoria nodded, understanding the weight of familial duty. "But you have a choice now. Perhaps this situation, as strange as it is, could be a chance to forge your own path." Her words resonated with Lorenzo, planting a seed of hope amid the uncertainty. Together, they were beginning to see that their unlikely engagement might hold more potential than either had dared to imagine. Over the following weeks, their time in the garden became a sanctuary. They shared stories and dreams, learning more about each other's lives beyond the roles assigned to them. Vittoria spoke of her vision for a small farm where she could nurture the land freely, while Lorenzo confessed his desire to modernize the family business with sustainable practices. Their collaboration wasn't without challenges. They often clashed over differing viewpoints, Vittoria's practicality against Lorenzo's idealism. But through their debates, they found a balance, a partnership that began to transcend the expectations imposed upon them. Despite the odds, an unexpected camaraderie blossomed between them. Lorenzo and Vittoria discovered a mutual respect, each realizing that the other might hold the key to unlocking the life they had always wanted. And so, under the vast Tuscan sky, amid the beauty of the gardens, an unlikely engagement transformed into the beginning of a journey, one that would challenge tradition, defy expectations, and ultimately reveal the true meaning of love and partnership. The garden was alive with the vibrant colors of late summer. Blossoms of every hue dotted the landscape, and the air was rich with the earthy scent of the harvest. The rhythmic hum of bees and the gentle rustle of leaves created a symphony of natural sounds that enveloped Villa Fiorente, turning the estate into a sanctuary of peace and growth. Lorenzo and Vittoria spent their days among the plants, their shared work cultivating not only the land, but also a growing understanding between them. Each day brought new insights into their personalities and dreams, and the garden became a space where their differences and similarities intertwined like the vines they tended. Lorenzo was discovering a new side of himself, one that found joy in the simplicity of planting seeds and watching them grow. Vittoria's expertise and passion for sustainable agriculture fascinated him, her vision aligning with his desire to modernize the family business. The transformation was gradual, like a seedling pushing through the soil, but it was undeniable. "Why does this matter so much to you?" Lorenzo asked one afternoon as they rested in the shade of the olive tree. His hands were stained with soil, but for the first time he didn't mind the grime. Vittoria leaned back against the tree, looking thoughtful. "The earth has always been a part of my life. My father taught me to respect it, to understand that it gives us everything we need. I want to honor that by working with the land, not against it." Lorenzo nodded, her words resonating with the changes stirring within him. "I think I understand. I've always felt like I was living in someone else's story, but here, with you, I'm starting to see a different path." Their conversations often turned to their shared dreams and the challenges they faced in achieving them. Vittoria's ambition to own a small farm was a vision that inspired Lorenzo, sparking ideas of how he could integrate her sustainable practices into the larger family estate. As they worked together, Vittoria found herself opening up to Lorenzo in ways she hadn't expected. Despite the circumstances that had brought them together, she discovered a genuine connection with him. Lorenzo's willingness to learn and adapt surprised her, his passion for creating something meaningful mirroring her own. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Lorenzo and Vittoria lingered in the garden, reluctant to end their day. The air was warm and fragrant, filled with the promise of new beginnings. "I've been thinking about what you said," Lorenzo began, breaking the comfortable silence, "about finding our own way through this. I believe we can create something unique here, something that combines both of our visions." Vittoria turned to him, curiosity piqued. "What do you have in mind?" Lorenzo smiled, the excitement in his eyes infectious. "We could start by introducing more sustainable practices in the vineyard. It's a small step, but it could be the beginning of a new direction for the estate." The idea intrigued Vittoria, aligning with her desire to see the land treated with care and respect. "I think that's a wonderful place to start," she agreed. "Together we can make this work." Their collaboration was not without challenges. Giovanni, ever the traditionalist, remained skeptical of their plans, his authority casting a long shadow over their efforts. Yet Lorenzo and Vittoria were determined to prove that their unconventional partnership could succeed. Their work in the garden became a symbol of their growing alliance, each step forward a testament to their shared resolve. They found themselves laughing more, their conversations weaving a tapestry of understanding that transcended the expectations of their forced engagement. As the days turned into weeks, the lines between duty and desire began to blur. Lorenzo's initial resentment of the arranged marriage gave way to admiration for Vittoria's strength and intelligence. He found himself looking forward to their time together, the garden becoming a refuge where he could be himself without pretense. Vittoria, too, felt the shift in their dynamic. Lorenzo's presence, once a source of frustration, became a comfort. His willingness to embrace change and challenge tradition inspired her, awakening a hope that their partnership could be more than a mere obligation. Under the Tuscan sun, amid the whispers of the olive trees and the fragrant blooms, Lorenzo and Vittoria nurtured a relationship that was as unexpected as it was profound. Together, they sowed the seeds of understanding, laying the foundation for a future that promised both love and purpose. Their journey had only just begun, but in the heart of the garden, they found the courage to dream, to imagine a life defined not by duty, but by choice. And in that choice lay the promise of something truly extraordinary. Chapter 5. The Winds of Change. As summer waned, the Tuscan countryside transformed, its rolling hills cloaked in shades of amber and crimson. The vineyards of Villa Fiorente were heavy with ripe grapes, the promise of a bountiful harvest hanging in the air. The estate was alive with activity as workers moved swiftly among the vines, preparing for the crucial season ahead. Inside the villa, Lorenzo and Vittoria found themselves at the center of preparations, their partnership evolving into something more than a mere arrangement. Their shared vision for the future of the estate had begun to take root, each step forward a testament to their determination and growing trust in one another. Lorenzo had taken to the fields with renewed energy, working alongside the laborers to understand the intricacies of the vineyard. He was no longer the aloof heir, but a leader who valued the wisdom and experience of those around him. His presence among the workers was a breath of fresh air, infusing the estate with a sense of optimism and possibility. In the evenings after the day's work was done, Lorenzo and Vittoria would retreat to the garden, their conversations filled with plans and dreams. The garden had become their sanctuary, a place where they could speak freely and nurture the bond that had grown between them. "We're making progress," Lorenzo said one evening, as they strolled along the garden path. The air was cool and crisp, the stars beginning to twinkle overhead. "The workers are responding well to the new practices we've implemented," Vittoria nodded, pleased with the changes they were bringing about. "It's a start, but we have a long way to go. Your father is still resistant to some of our ideas," Lorenzo sighed, the weight of Giovanni's expectations a constant presence in their lives. "I know, but I believe we can show him that change can be beneficial. We just need to prove it with results." Their discussions often turned to Giovanni, whose traditional views remained a formidable obstacle. Despite their progress, the patriarch of the Bianchi family was wary of the changes unfolding on his estate. His skepticism was a shadow that loomed over their efforts, a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. One afternoon, as the sun bathed the vineyard in golden light, Giovanni summoned Lorenzo and Vittoria to his study. The room was filled with the scent of leather and aged wood, the walls lined with ledgers and documents detailing the family's legacy. Giovanni sat behind his desk, his gaze piercing as he regarded the couple before him. "I've heard talk of your new methods," he began, his tone measured. "Tell me, what is the purpose of these changes?" Lorenzo took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "We're introducing sustainable practices to improve the health of the soil and the quality of the grapes. It's an investment in the future, Father." Giovanni's expression remained impassive, his skepticism evident. "The future is built on the foundations of the past. Our methods have served us well for generations." Vittoria spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "Signore Bianchi, we're not disregarding tradition. We're building on it, combining the wisdom of the past with innovations that can ensure our prosperity for years to come." Giovanni studied her, the weight of his authority pressing down like a palpable force. "And you believe this is the way forward?" "I do," Vittoria replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "The world is changing, and we must change with it if we are to thrive." A tense silence filled the room, the air heavy with unspoken challenges. Giovanni leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Very well," he conceded, a hint of grudging respect in his voice. "You have my permission to proceed. But know this, the success or failure of your endeavors will reflect on both of you." Lorenzo and Vittoria exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. This was their chance to prove themselves, to show that their partnership could bring about meaningful change. As they left the study, Vittoria's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and determination. Giovanni's reluctant approval was a small victory, but it was enough to keep their hopes alive. That evening, as they stood in the garden beneath the stars, Lorenzo turned to Vittoria, gratitude and admiration in his eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. "I couldn't have done this without you." Vittoria smiled, touched by his words. "We're in this together, Lorenzo. We'll make this work." Their bond had grown stronger with each challenge they faced, and with it, a deepening affection that neither had anticipated. The seeds of understanding they had sown were blossoming into something more profound, something that had the potential to redefine their lives and reshape the future of Villa Fiorente. As the seasons turned and the vineyard came alive with the harvest, Lorenzo and Vittoria embraced the winds of change. Together, they would prove that their unlikely partnership was not only viable, but a force that could bring new life to the land they both cherished. And in the heart of the garden, where dreams took root and flourished, they found the courage to believe in the possibility of love, an unexpected gift that would guide them through the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. Chapter 6. Harvest of the Heart. The harvest season descended upon Villa Fiorente with an air of anticipation. The vineyard buzzed with activity, the workers moving with purpose as they collected the fruit of their labor. The grapes were plump and full, their rich color a testament to the success of the new methods Lorenzo and Vittoria had introduced. Giovanni, ever watchful, observed the transformation with a cautious eye. He could not deny the improvement in the vineyard's yield, nor the enthusiasm of the workers who had embraced the changes. Yet a part of him remained skeptical, unwilling to relinquish the traditions that had defined the estate for generations. One afternoon, as the harvest reached its peak, Lorenzo and Vittoria stood together at the edge of the vineyard, surveying the bustling scene. The sun cast a warm glow over the land, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of ripe grapes through the air. "We did it," Lorenzo said, a note of pride in his voice. "The vineyard is thriving." Vittoria nodded, her heart swelling with a sense of accomplishment. "It's amazing what we've achieved together." Their partnership had evolved beyond their wildest expectations, the bond between them deepening with each challenge they overcame. The garden, once a symbol of duty and obligation, had become a place of possibility, a space where dreams took root and blossomed into reality. As the workers continued their labor, Lorenzo and Vittoria shared a moment of quiet reflection. Their journey had been fraught with obstacles, yet they had emerged stronger and more united than ever. But amid the success, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. Giovanni, though impressed by their achievements, remained resistant to some of their ideas, particularly Vittoria's vision for a small farm dedicated to sustainable practices. Determined to win him over, Lorenzo and Vittoria devised a plan to present their vision in a way that honored the family's legacy while embracing innovation. They spent long evenings in the library, crafting a proposal that would showcase the potential of their combined approach. The night before the presentation, Lorenzo and Vittoria found themselves in the garden, their thoughts consumed by the task ahead. The moon bathed the landscape in silvery light, casting an ethereal glow over the plants they had nurtured together. "I'm nervous," Vittoria admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Lorenzo reached for her hand, a gesture of reassurance. "We've come this far together, Vittoria. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a team." Their connection had grown into something undeniable, a deep affection that transcended the expectations of their arranged engagement. Lorenzo's initial reluctance had given way to admiration, and Vittoria's skepticism had transformed into trust. Together, they had discovered a love that was as unexpected as it was profound. The next day, Giovanni sat at the head of the dining table, flanked by Lorenzo and Vittoria. The proposal lay before him, a carefully crafted document outlining their vision for the future of Villa Fiorente. Lorenzo spoke with conviction, his passion evident in every word. "Father, we've proven that sustainable practices can enhance the vineyard's productivity, but there's more we can do. With your support, we can create a small farm that showcases the potential of these methods." Giovanni listened intently, his expression inscrutable. As Vittoria outlined her vision for the farm, her passion shining through, he considered the possibilities she presented. Finally, after a long pause, Giovanni spoke. "You've both accomplished much, and I see the value in your ideas. But change is never easy, and there will be risks." Vittoria met his gaze, her determination unwavering. "We're prepared to face those risks, Signore Bianchi. We believe in this vision, and we're willing to work tirelessly to make it a reality." Giovanni nodded, a hint of respect in his eyes. "Very well, I will support your endeavor, but know that this is a test, a chance to prove that your vision can sustain itself." Relief washed over Lorenzo and Vittoria, their hard work and perseverance paying off in a way they had only dared to hope for. With Giovanni's reluctant blessing, they set about bringing their vision to life. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. The small farm took shape, a testament to their shared dedication and passion. They experimented with innovative techniques, cultivating crops that thrived under their care. As the farm grew, so did the bond between Lorenzo and Vittoria. Their partnership, once born of necessity, had blossomed into a love that defied convention, a love that was as resilient and enduring as the land they nurtured. Giovanni, once skeptical, began to see the value of their efforts. The success of the farm brought renewed prosperity to Villa Fiorente, and with it, a sense of pride that bridged the gap between tradition and progress. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the estate, Lorenzo and Vittoria stood together in the garden. The air was filled with the fragrance of blooming flowers, a testament to their journey and the love that had grown between them. Lorenzo turned to Vittoria, his eyes filled with affection. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Vittoria smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we have, and I wouldn't change a thing." Their love, like the land they had tended, was a testament to resilience and hope. Together, they had redefined what it meant to be partners, building a life that honored their dreams and aspirations. In the heart of Villa Fiorente, amid the beauty of the vineyard and the garden they had nurtured, Lorenzo and Vittoria found not only success, but fulfillment, a harvest of the heart that promised a future filled with love, purpose, and endless possibilities.